You know the moment. You make a small mistake. You send the message with a typo. You forget one thing in a meeting. You say something slightly awkward, and it is not the mistake that hurts. It is what shows up after. That voice, not loud and not dramatic, just precise, cold, efficient, like it has been waiting. And it says things that land exactly where you are soft. Of course you did that. Everyone noticed. You always ruin things. Why are you like this? And the most confusing part is not even what it says. It is how convincing it sounds. Because it sounds like you. It uses your own language, your own memory, your own tone. And that makes it feel like truth instead of a state. So you try to ignore it. You tell yourself you are being silly. You try to outthink it with positive thinking. You try to argue. You try to reason it down. And somehow it gets louder. And here is the first clean frame I want to give you. Not as motivation, just as accuracy. Your inner voice is not cruel because you are broken. It becomes cruel when your system believes something is at risk. And the risk is not always physical. Most of the time it is social risk. Belonging, reputation, competence, status, being taken seriously, losing control, being rejected, being exposed. And when that risk light turns on, the mind does not become kind, it becomes strategic, because the inner voice is not only a narrator, it is also a regulator. And one of its oldest strategies is pressure, because pressure is a fast way to force compliance. Your inner voice at baseline is one of the most useful tools you have. It is language turned inward. It is how you keep verbal information active, how you plan, how you simulate, how you rehearse, how you stop yourself from doing something impulsive, how you run through a hard conversation before you have it, and even how you build a story about your life that helps you understand who you are. And if you have ever walked yourself through a presentation in your head, heard the questions before they were asked, and answered them silently, that is your inner voice doing exactly what it was built to do. But there is a dark mode of this tool, and you know it immediately when it arrives. Because when you turn inward to make sense of a problem, you do not end up finding solutions. You end up looping, replaying, worrying, catastrophizing, diagnosing, condemning, and it becomes less like reflection and more like churn. And that is what Ethan Kross calls chatter, the dark side of the inner voice, the part that turns a remarkable device into something that feels like a curse. The reason, just ignore it, fails, is that the voice is not a random thought. It is a threat signal wrapped in language, and ignoring a threat signal does not calm the system. It often convinces the system the threat must be bigger, because the brain's protective logic is simple. If you are not responding, I will turn up the volume until you do. And this is why the cruel voice feels so sticky, because it steals attention, and attention is your most expensive resource. And when your inner voice is in threat mode, it pulls your attention inward and forces you to monitor, replay, rehearse, defend, which means you have less focus for the actual task, less presence with people, less ability to listen, less ability to think cleanly, and then you perform worse or withdraw or become tense or reactive, and the voice gets a new piece of evidence to keep itself going. And this is how the loop becomes self-feeding, not because you are weak, but because your system is overloaded. So, what do you do with it? Because the goal is not to win a debate in your head, and it is not to eliminate your inner voice either, since you need it. The goal is to change your relationship to it, so it stops running the room when it is in threat mode. And the first move is to stop treating the voice like a prophet, and stop treating it like a villain, and instead treat it like a manager under pressure. Because managers under pressure do not speak gently. They speak in ultimatums, they speak in deadlines, they speak in worst-case scenarios, because worst-case scenarios feel like preparation. This is where we use one lever that changes the mechanism itself, and it is small enough to use in real life, especially when you are already spiraling. And I am going to name it so it sticks. The name shift. Because when the voice turns cruel, it often speaks in first person. It says, I am pathetic. I always mess things up. I can't do anything right. And first-person self-talk is immersive. It glues you to the emotion and collapses you into the criticism, as if it is identity. So the name shift is when you switch from I to your name or to you, not as a cute trick, but as a distance mechanism, because it changes the camera angle, and the camera angle changes what your nervous system can do next. So instead of, I'm going to blow this, you try, Peter, you're spiraling, or, okay, you're in threat mode, or, John, you're pressuring yourself because you want control. And what this does is it turns a global identity statement into an observation. It creates a half step of space, and that half step is where authorship lives. Because now you can ask a better question than, what's wrong with me? You can ask, what is my system trying to prevent right now? And that question is not comforting, it is clarifying. It turns shame into data. And when you look closely, you will notice the cruel voice usually shows up for a few predictable reasons. It is trying to prevent social pain, like embarrassment or rejection. It is trying to force certainty when things are unclear by making a harsh conclusion that feels solid, or it is trying to create performance through pressure, because at some point in your life, pressure actually worked. Maybe you were rewarded for being hard on yourself. Maybe love and safety followed achievement. Maybe mistakes were expensive. Maybe being fine was required. So your system learned that pressure equals survival, and it kept the strategy. But strategies that worked in one environment can become poison in another. So in the moment, you don't need a complicated plan. You need 3 simple moves that work even when the prefrontal cortex is not fully online. And the first is to label the mode, because labeling breaks fusion. You say, this is threat talk, or this is chatter, or this is the manager voice, not to be clever, but to stop confusing it with truth. Then you do the name shift once. John, you're trying to protect yourself. You're scanning for danger. You're pressuring because you want to prevent humiliation. And then you ask the one grounding question that forces the system back into reality. What is the next concrete step? Not the next 10 steps, not how to fix your whole life, not why you are like this. Just the next step. One action, one email, one sentence, one decision, one glass of water, one walk for 3 minutes, one clarification. Because agency returns through action and specificity, not through internal argument. And now we need to talk about the environment piece. Because if your life is a constant input storm, constant notifications, endless comparison, fragmented attention, back-to-back demands, no recovery buffers, your inner voice will have more opportunities to run threat logic. Because fragmentation feels like loss of control, and loss of control is one of the fastest ways to trigger chatter. So sometimes the cruel inner voice problem is not a personality problem, it is a load problem. And reducing noise is not a lifestyle aesthetic, it is a way to lower baseline threat. So here is the practical part. And yes, it is deliberately structured like an experiment, because shame thrives in vagueness and experiments create clarity. For 2 weeks, do not try to fix your personality. Do not try to become endlessly calm. Just run one simple protocol. When the cruel voice appears, use the name shift once. Then write 1 line of data, 3 blanks only. Trigger was, it was trying to prevent. Next step is, and that is it. You are not journaling your childhood, you are collecting reality. Because once you can predict your pattern, the voice loses power. Surprise is fuel, and prediction is regulation. And I want to add one boundary so this doesn't turn into fake positivity, because the goal is not to remove all criticism. Sometimes that presentation was messy is feedback, and you can use it. The problem is not feedback, the problem is global condemnation, because you did a messy presentation is fixable, but you are a mess is a trap. And this channel is not here to make you delusional, it is here to make you precise. So, if your inner voice is cruel, it doesn't mean you are secretly bad. It usually means you care and your system learned that pressure keeps you safe. But you do not need to be threatened into being a person. You need clarity. You need space. You need one lever that gives you back a fraction of choice. And the pattern is simple. When your system feels at risk, it turns language into a weapon to force control. And the first act of authorship is not silencing the voice. It is refusing to speak to yourself like an enemy, not because you are fragile, but because it doesn't work. And if you want, in the next episode we can go one layer deeper into why this voice gets loud at night, after social interactions, or right after you succeed, because the triggers change, but the mechanism stays the same. And once you see the mechanism, you stop taking the cruelty personally, and you start responding like the author again.